Here in London, Qatar owns even more property than the Queen of England. In New York, Qatar's investment arm bought nearly a 10% stake in the owners of the Empire State Building. In Los Angeles, a Qatari media group purchased Miramax Studios last year for an undisclosed amount. In Singapore, Qatar's investment fund recently purchased this tower for $2.5 billion.
You've probably never seen the Qatari flag waving above your favorite luxury hotel, or noticed it printed on the receipt from your last shopping spree in London, or caught it flashing subtly during a Champions League final, but it's there. Always there. Quiet, strategic, deliberate. Because while the world was watching wars, elections, pandemics, and protests, Qatar was busy buying up the world. This is not just about money, it's about power, identity, survival, and it begins with a tiny peninsula jutting into the Arabian Gulf, smaller than Connecticut, with fewer than 3 million people, but with the third largest natural gas reserves on Earth. Qatar's wealth comes from beneath the sea, the North Field, shared with Iran. And it holds enough gas to power the planet for decades. Every day, Qatar liquefies that gas, freezes it to minus 260 degrees Fahrenheit, loads it onto tankers, and ships it to countries desperate to keep their lights on. That money doesn't just go to roads and schools, it goes to strategy. In 2005, Qatar launched something the world didn't quite understand: the Qatar Investment Authority, a sovereign wealth fund that now controls over $475 billion in assets. Its job? Turn gas into global influence. Today, the QIA owns entire buildings, companies, and brands across Europe, the US, and Asia. Let's start with London. The Shard, Western Europe's tallest skyscraper, Qatar owns 95% of it. The London Stock Exchange? Qatar is one of its largest shareholders. Canary Wharf, the glass and steel heart of British banking? Qatar owns a 50% stake. And it doesn't end there. Harrods, the luxury department store beloved by kings and celebrities, was bought outright for £1.5 billion. And then there's Chelsea Barracks, a massive prime real estate development once blocked by Prince Charles for being too flashy, now entirely in Qatari hands. And of course, there's football. In 2011, Qatar Sports Investments purchased Paris Saint-Germain, PSG, for 76 million euros. At the time, it was a mid-tier French club. But with Qatari billions, it became a global powerhouse, bringing in players like Neymar, Messi, and Mbappe. Football became more than sport. It became Qatar's megaphone to the world. Western media called it sports washing. But for Qatar, it was something deeper: identity building. Showing the world that Qatar is not just a gas station in the desert. In America, Qatar's footprint is more subtle but no less impressive. It owns 17% of Volkswagen, a significant stake in Credit Suisse, and billions in New York real estate, including stakes in the Empire State Building and Manhattan's Plaza Hotel. In Germany, it bought into Siemens, Deutsche Bank, and Porsche. In France, it holds luxury brands, retail chains, and shares in media houses. Why? Because bricks, buildings, and brands don't evaporate like oil does. They remain. They influence culture, politics, and perception. But here's the question: why is Qatar doing all this so quietly? It starts with fear. In 2017, Qatar woke up to find itself surrounded. Overnight, Qatar faced economic suffocation, but instead of collapsing, it adapted, built new farms, partnered with Turkey and Iran, created its own shipping routes, but most importantly, it realized influence isn't just about what you own at home, it's about what you own abroad. By owning critical assets in London, Paris, and New York, Qatar gained something even its massive gas reserves couldn't buy directly: protection. Because when you own landmarks, media outlets, banks, and sports teams in the West, you don't just have money, you have leverage. You become a stakeholder in the system, harder to isolate, harder to ignore. Take Al Jazeera, for example, a media network born in Doha with a reach from Cairo to Washington. While controversial in the West, it has given Qatar a unique voice in global discourse, amplifying its views, countering rivals, and shaping opinion. But the bigger weapon is still capital. In the post-COVID world, with economies reeling and inflation surging, countries need investment more than ever. And Qatar has positioned itself as a rescuer. Italy's troubled airline industry? Qatar Airways stepped in. Greece's ports and logistics? Qatari money flowed in. Spain's real estate crash? Qatar bought prime properties while others fled. And then came the crown jewel, the 2022 FIFA World Cup. Qatar spent over $220 billion, the most expensive World Cup in history. Entire cities were built, metro lines laid, stadiums rose from the sand. Western media questioned everything from labor rights to heat conditions. But when the world tuned in, they saw more than football. They saw Qatar. And not the Qatar of desert stereotypes, but a sleek, modern, confident nation that could host the world and win. It was less about sport and more about rewriting the narrative. But this story isn't without critics. Human rights organizations point to the treatment of migrant workers. Economists warn about overexposure to volatile global markets. And rival Gulf states accuse Qatar of buying influence rather than earning it. But Qatar's leadership sees this differently. For them, this isn't extravagance, it's survival. They look at the fall of oil prices, the rise of climate change, the risk of being outmaneuvered in a volatile region. And they ask, what will Qatar be in 50 years when gas is no longer king? Their answer, diversified, global, indispensable. This strategy echoes another Gulf state, the UAE, which built Dubai into a commercial haven. But while Dubai dazzled with tourism and skyscrapers, Qatar plays a different game. Quiet power through global ownership. There's another layer here. Islamophobia in Western politics. Anti-Arab sentiment. Misunderstandings about the Gulf. For Qatar, owning a luxury brand in Paris or an apartment tower in Manhattan is not just a financial move, it's a statement that we are part of this world, that our identity is not confined to your stereotype. Still, risks remain. This is not just about the present, it's about legacy. Qatar doesn't have the population of Egypt, the military of Turkey, the oil of Saudi Arabia, but it has money, vision, and time. And with every silent acquisition, it's turning the tables. Because the next time someone says Qatar is just a small desert country, they may be standing in a building Qatar owns, wearing clothes made by a company Qatar controls, watching a football match sponsored by a team Qatar funds. So the next time you wonder who really owns the modern world, don't just look to Washington or Beijing. Look to Doha. Because in a world of noise, sometimes the quietest players hold the most power. And Qatar's not just playing the game, it's buying the board.